Let's talk about today 5 signs that your nervous system may be asking you for help. A few years ago, a woman sat across from me in my office, and she was successful, capable, and composed. She was the person that everyone depended on, the one that often people refer to as the strong one. But that day, she looked at me and said, "I don't understand what's happening. Nothing is technically wrong, but I'm just tired in a way that no amount of sleep seems to fix it." So I asked her a question. When was the last time that your body actually felt safe? And she became very quiet. And then she started to cry, a very deep cry. That story that I'm sharing with you now, it's a composite. It reflects patterns I have seen across many different patients over the years. I've sat with many people who are working, parenting, leading, caring for others, and somehow continuing to hold everything together. And on the outside, they appear to be managing everything. Inside, their bodies are exhausted, completely wiped out. Perhaps some part of you can understand this feeling. You can continue functioning while still feeling deeply depleted. It happens to all of us. And sometimes your nervous system begins asking for help long before your mind is ready to admit that something needs to change. These can happen with a lot of signals that are happening in the body. Hello, I'm Dr. Asha. I help people understand the relationship between the mind, body, emotions, relationships, and overall health and well-being. Growing up around Indian philosophy, I learned early on that the mind, body, and spirit are not separate parts of us. They are constantly influencing and communicating with one another. Western medicine gives us valuable knowledge about the brain and body. Eastern traditions often invites us to ask another important question. What is this experience trying to show me? A symptom is not always something to fight or to silence. Sometimes it's a message. It's the body's way of communicating. And your body is not necessarily working against you. It may be doing its best to protect you, just as it was trying to protect the woman that I shared in the story earlier. Before we continue, I also want to gently remind you that this video is for education and reflection purposes. It cannot replace personalized medical or mental health care. Stress can affect the body in so many ways, but persistent, severe, new, or concerning symptoms deserve proper evaluation by your qualified professional. With that in mind, let's look at 5 signs that your nervous system may be asking for more care, support, and safety. The first one, you feel tired, but you cannot slow down. How many of you can relate to this? You feel exhausted throughout the day, but the moment your head touches the pillow, your mind wakes up. You are alert. You replay a conversation from earlier. You begin planning tomorrow. You think about the email or the phone call that you forgot to make or forgot to send, and it's just weighing on your mind. Your body is asking, in fact, begging you for sleep, but your mind is still on duty. The woman that I spoke about earlier had not slept throughout the night for over a year. She desperately wanted to rest, but something inside of her continued to stay alert, as though relaxing would allow something important to fall apart. Perhaps sometimes what we do is we describe this feeling as tired but wired. This is not always a discipline problem. It's not simply a matter of putting your phone away, buying a better pillow, a better mattress, or trying harder to relax. Your nervous system is constantly looking for signals that tell you whether you are safe or whether you need to stay prepared. And you may know intellectually that the workday is over. You may know that you are lying safely in your own bed, but your body may still be waiting for proof. True rest is not simply the absence of activity. Rest requires a felt sense of safety. Your body may be tired, but your internal alarm system has not received the message yet that it is allowed to switch off. Rest is not just the absence of activity. It is the presence of safety. The second sign, small things create big reactions. A message goes unanswered and you immediately assume something's wrong. Someone changes the plans and you feel unusually anxious or irritated by this. You see a dish left in the sink and suddenly it feels like the final straw. You get irritated, you're on edge. You know your reaction is bigger than the situation. But in that moment, you cannot seem to stop it. It's automatic. I once asked a patient what had upset her that week, and she laughed, almost embarrassed, and said to me, "A parking spot. I cried over a parking spot." But it was not really about the parking spot. The thing about that is that think about your nervous system like a cup, okay? Every deadline, every disappointment, every worry, every responsibility, difficult conversation adds another drop. And when that cup is already full, it only takes one small thing for everything to overflow. And that does not mean you have suddenly become angry or impatient or overly emotional. It may simply mean that your system has been carrying too much for too long. And when the body remains under chronic stress, it can stay in a heightened state of readiness. Your usual level of stress is already elevated, so even a small additional demand can feel enormous. The unanswered text is not always the whole story. The change in the plans is not always the whole story. And that dish in the sink is rarely just about the dish. Your reaction may be connected to everything you have been holding underneath it. It was never only about the parking spot. It was about everything underneath that. The third sign is that your body always stays tense. Take a moment right now, and I want you to notice your body in this moment. Is your jaw tight? Are your shoulders raised? Is your breathing shallow? Are you breathing up in your chest? Do you frequently experience headaches, neck tension, a knot between your shoulder blades that never seems to fully disappear? These symptoms and signs may have many causes. Stress may contribute, but it should never be assumed to be the only explanation. If you are concerned about this, of course, seek your healthcare professional, because sometimes when the symptoms are persistent and painful and worsening, there could be something else going on. But before the patient in our story said anything about the pressure she was under, I could already see in the way that she held her body, her shoulders were lifted, her hands tensed, her breathing was short and shallow. Her body was telling the story before she had found the words to describe what she was feeling. And when the nervous system believes that you may need to react quickly, the muscles often prepare for action. The jaw tightens, your heart rate increases, the shoulders brace, the breath becomes shorter and more shallow. This can happen without you consciously choosing that to happen. So your body may be preparing to protect you even when there is no immediate danger in front of you. So let's pause together for a moment. Allow your tongue to soften inside your mouth. Unclench your jaw. Let your shoulders drop slightly. And take one slow breath. Notice whether releasing that tension feels natural or strangely unfamiliar. Now consider how much energy your body has been using just to carry you through an ordinary day. Your body may begin bracing before your mind understands why. The fourth sign, you feel disconnected from yourself. Some people experience stress as fear, panic, or racing thoughts. Other people experience stress as almost nothing at all. They're not even aware of it. They feel numb, disconnected. They move through the day completing their task and answering the questions and taking care of responsibilities and doing what needs to be done, getting everything done, but they do not feel fully present in their own lives. Halfway through an early conversation, one patient said something I have never forgotten. "I don't feel sad. I don't feel anything. I just go through the motions." And that was not a personal failure, but very revealing. It was not a lack of gratitude. It was her nervous system trying to protect her from experiencing everything all at once. It was going to be too much for her system. And you may notice that you no longer enjoy activities you used to love. You may feel distant from people you care about. You may complete an entire day and hardly remember being emotionally present for any of it. Disconnecting can sometimes be protective. It can, when life feels too intense, the body may turn down the volume because otherwise it's too much. In the yogic philosophy, there's a practice known as pratyahara, which involves gentle drawing attention inward. This is not about withdrawing from life. It's about creating enough quiet to hear yourself again, to hear that inner voice. Numbness does not always mean that nothing is happening inside you. Sometimes it means your system is trying to prevent you from feeling too much too quickly. At the same time, ongoing numbness, detachment, or loss of interest can also be associated with conditions that you need to discuss with your healthcare professional and get support for it. You don't have to interpret or manage these experiences alone. Numbness is not always an absence of feeling. Sometimes it's a form of protection that your body is providing for you. And the last sign, the fifth sign, you cannot rest without feeling guilty. You finally sit down at the end of the day, but instead of relaxing, you begin mentally listing everything that you should be doing. You take a day off, but spend the entire day thinking about work waiting for you. Even during moments of rest, part of you feels uncomfortable, restless, guilty even. I asked a patient one day what he believed what would happen if he rested for an entire day and accomplished nothing. And he became really quiet. And he said to me, I don't know who I am if I'm not being useful or productive. And that sentence may be familiar to you. Maybe you haven't put it into words, but many people grow up being praised for being responsible, hardworking, dependable, always active and strong. And these are all meaningful qualities. But when they become painful, productivity turns into the only way that we measure our worth. When being useful becomes part of our identity, rest can begin to feel dangerous. And you may worry that slowing down means that you're lazy. You may feel that you have to earn the right to rest. You may believe that if you stop producing, people will stop valuing you. The Bhagavad Gita, which is an Indian text, speaks about acting with dedication while releasing our attachment to the outcome. And one way to understand this teaching is that you can care deeply about your responsibilities without allowing every result to determine your value. So you are allowed to be committed to your work, of course. I hope that you love the work that you do. And you're allowed to have your goals, something to reach for, and you're also allowed to exist without constantly having to prove your worth. You are more than what you accomplish in a single day. You are so much more than that. You do not have to be useful every single moment to be worthy of care and well-being. Now, before we finish, I would like to guide you through a short practice. This is similar to an exercise I have shared with many patients and clients over the years. For most people, this is a gentle grounding practice. But please, I want you to listen to your body. You may stop at any time, keep your eyes open if you like, or simply observe without participating in any part of this exercise if it feels uncomfortable to you. I want you to place both feet on the floor. Allow yourself to feel the ground beneath them. Now, I want you to look around the room slowly. Without rushing, I want you to notice 5 things that you can see. Notice the light, the colors, the shapes around you. Feel the chair or surface supporting your body. You don't have to hold yourself up all by yourself in this moment. Now breathe in gently through your nose. And as you breathe out, allow the exhale to be slightly longer than the inhalation. You don't need to force a deep breath. Let it be comfortable. Place one hand over your chest or your stomach, only if that feels supportive, and quietly, either out loud or in your mind, say, in this moment, I do not have to solve everything. And take one more slow breath. This exercise is not about forcing yourself to be calm. It's about offering your nervous system one small signal that says, you are here, you are supported, and you are safe enough in this moment. Small signals repeated consistently can begin to change the way the body responds to everyday stress. And that's what we want to build. Several months later, the patient in my story told me that she had started sleeping throughout the night again. Her life had not suddenly become easy, by all means, but her responsibilities had not disappeared either. But with time and support, her body was slowly learning that it did not have to remain on guard every hour of the day. Her life did not become easier overnight, but her body learned that it was allowed to stand down and to be in that safety, in that safe feeling. Which of these 5 signs do you recognize most in yourself? I'd like for you to share the number in the comments. Would love to hear from you. You do not have to explain your entire story if you don't want to. Sometimes simply naming what you are experiencing is a meaningful first step. And if something in this video brought up concern for you, please consider speaking with a qualified healthcare professional. Okay, I think that that's very important. You deserve the support that is personal to you and to what your circumstances are. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and be sure to drop a comment. Let us hear from you. If you're ready to send this to someone that may be needing this message, please do so. And I look forward to seeing you the next time. Remember that your body is always communicating with you. Healing can begin when you learn how to listen with curiosity, compassion, and without judgment. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.